supporting the values that we at home were teaching our kids. That's not really the case anymore. But one of the things that's happening is parents with through after COVID, they realized uh, that what the kids were being taught. They weren't aware of it. And when COVID happened and parents had to stay home, two good things came out of that time when the pandemic was going on. Number one was some parents who had been gone a lot had more time to spend with their children, which was a good thing. They had to slow down; they couldn't go out, and they were able to spend more time with kids. The second thing, what happened was they were hearing what kids what kids were being taught. Their children were being taught by teachers in the school, and they were like, wait, what are you talking about? And that's when all this ruckus started, and parents started showing up at board meetings and uh, arguing with the board and the policies. So definitely, to get to your question, it's about involvement, it's about awareness, it's about parents taking their authority and fighting for that authority and saying, no, school, you do not have the last say on my children's education. I have the last say. I'm the authority in their life. And same with the government, same with school policies and all these different things that, as I said, are taking power away from parents. And parents need to stand up and fight for their rights as the authority in the life of their children.
I want to bring in Rick Rosen. He's got a question. We've got other panelists as well, including one of the founders of the network and everything. But as I bring in Rick, because I did see his hand raised and everything along those lines, tell us about the other book, because that was one of the books, but you've written a couple of books. So tell us about the other book and also refresh people's memories as to where you are and everything like that, because I've got to say which part of the United States you're in and everything like that.
All right. Yeah. So you've talked about influence of social media on kids, but I'm on Twitter a lot, and I find that social media is corrosive to adults, to probably a lot of parents. And you say you reject the idea of it takes a village to raise a child, but I grew up, and my dad, in a conservative Republican family. My dad was a small businessman, and he had face-to-face conversations with dozens, maybe hundreds of people a day. And if he'd started talking crazy crap, all his friends would have gone, Freddie, you're an idiot. That's ridiculous. It was face-to-face communication in the family, in the community, and now everybody's getting information from social media. And I feel like there are a lot of parents who have been made crazy by getting blasted. There's a thing called the Russian fire hose of propaganda, which is that if you hit people with hundreds of messages a day on social media, you can make them believe crazy stuff. So what about parents staying sane?
Yeah, well, I completely agree. That's right. That's part of the problem, is that parents are modeling for their children the addiction to their screens, and you can't even have a conversation at the dinner table. How many times do you go to a restaurant and you see kids and their parents
the
all
whole family, everybody
yeah, they're looking at their phones. And so you're absolutely right, and it starts with us. We have to show that we are the masters of technology rather than the puppets of technology, because that's exactly what's happening. So I completely agree with that. And yes, it's good that there's other people who can put us in check, like you said, whether they're friends or family members, at Thanksgiving and Christmas, or maybe just a simple dinner, picnic, whatever, who can say to us, hey, what are you talking about? Or what are you thinking? Or what is going on? However, and as you guys know, in our political climate, between whether you voted for Trump or not, or you got vaccinated or not, a lot of people don't even talk to family members don't even talk to each other anymore over those kinds of issues. And that doesn't model a community at all. And quickly, Mark, to answer your question, I'm in Santa Barbara, California, and the new book that I've just written, and it's going to be released this month, is called The Art of Step Parenting: How to Blend Families Without Tearing Them Apart. I've been a step parent all my parenting life, and the reason I wrote that book as a sequel to my other book is because of not only my own life, but all the families that I've worked with over these 30 years. step families are becoming more and more prominent. And there's just a lot of dynamics that I wanted to talk about. I share my own story and other stories, and it's just an important issue, especially for single parents who bring in somebody into the life of their children, and then it doesn't work out. Now there's a second mom or a second dad, and then a third, or they're perpetrators themselves, and they end up either molesting the children and things like that. And the worst case scenario, which unfortunately I've seen more than once, is sometimes these step parents come in and actually, well, I hate to say it, but kids are killed. And that's happened. And so those are extreme examples. But my point is this: I'm just trying to address some of the issues and trying to give hope to parents of second marriages and third marriages that we can blend families in a way that brings healing and a joyful experience, but it is difficult. And that's why.
What do you think the keys are to a blended family? Because, like I said, my brother has my two nephews, and he's in a relationship now, and he's been in a relationship for a number of years, and she's got two kids. Her kids are pretty much on the adult side of teenage and young adult years, because I know that the daughter is a school teacher herself and in her early 20s, and I want to say that the son is in maybe his late teens or early 20s himself, and is I want to say a sophomore at North Carolina State University and everything like that. So what do you see are the keys to having a blended family since you've been involved in that space?
Yeah, well, there's a few things, but the main thing, in my opinion, it comes down to emotional maturity. It takes a lot of maturity to deal with somebody else's children, especially if you know how old they are. I mean, if they're little babies or 2, 3 years old, it's a lot easier. That was my first experience. But my current experience, when I married my current wife, her kids were teenagers. Two of them were teenagers, and one was a preteen. One was a teenager, one was preteen, and one was very, very little. But dealing with ex-spouses, dealing with ex-in-laws, dealing with kids just having an attitude, not wanting you to be around, those things take a lot of emotional maturity. And we're not growing ourselves, if we're not looking within ourselves and willing to be honest and transparent and humble, etc., it's just easy to say, hey, I'm the adult, I'm your stepdad, I don't care what you think or say, this is the way it's going to be. And you come in and you try to change everything. And those are huge mistakes. So those are some of the things that I talk about. But I would just say that emotional maturity is the key.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not easy.
What do you say to folks who get involved in bringing in some of the other panelists like Dr. Sharif from Bangladesh and Nick, I think we're trying to get on as well. But I do know that sometimes, because I have dated women that had kids and everything along those lines, that there can be some manipulation from the kids and everything like that. So how do you fight against that manipulation? Because sometimes they know you are the new player in the game, and they will manipulate you to go get a gift for them or go get food or whatever else they may manipulate you for. I know that I've been victimized by that, for lack of a better term, and everything. So how do you deal with that?
Well, it's the same thing. First of all, try to be on the same page with your, I guess in this case, your girlfriend,
Right.
be on the same page, because what happens. Hey, I don't want you disciplining my kid. Don't talk to my kids that way. And it's like, well, you're going to bring me into your life, and maybe we're going to get married. And now you're telling me you don't want me anything to do with your kids. And yet they're mistreating you. They're talking back. I mean, there's so many things, Mark, we could talk about. But in my view, it really comes down to personal growth, emotional maturity, and the ability to communicate, be on the same page with the other person, the other party, and then to be able to deal with the hard things that come along with trying to raise somebody else's children.
Yeah.
So what about searching for information together with your kids? When I was growing up, my friends and I, we were clueless, and it was hard to get information. Like, we didn't know how to talk to girls. We wanted to get girlfriends, and now there's a ton of information out. I mean, you can find your peers online, and you talk about some skepticism about what's in the schools. And I suspect some of that skepticism is about gender orientation stuff. My wife has spent years, her last two jobs were in private high schools in Southern California. And there's a lot of trans stuff going around, and there's a lot of bad information maybe from both sides. So if that's an issue, I feel like something that families can do together is search out accurate information about, and and for parents, both parents and kids to say, I don't know, but let's find out together.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always the best way, together. Working together, communicating together. I mean, part of the problem, as we already talked about, is there's just a lack of communication and understanding between, whether it's the kids and stepkids or your normal kids or the spouses or the partners. You're right. There's a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of misinformation, as we all know. That's the age we're living in right now. So yeah, getting accurate information is very important.
Yeah, Richard, I have something I just want to know from you because I'm from different culture, different perspective. If you see the subcontinent, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, our major values, our children values, everything come from family. Let's say I grew up in a big family. My grandfather has around 11 children and we have around 30 family members. So honestly speaking, I learned my values, my ethics, my attitudes, philosophical aspect, religions, team building approach, negotiation with the peoples uh, from my family. And when you discuss about this Western world, even though right now, even Bangladesh and subcontinent, we are heavily following this Western culture and everything. Do you think that Western world, for the betterment of their future, they should focus on the family values? On the other hand, definitely you have a lot of good knowledge and everything we can learn from there. I'm happy to learn from there. What's your thoughts about family values? What's your perspective that how we can develop our better future through this
Well,
family values and everything?
yeah, well, as you said, I mean, that is the way we are raised. I mean, in our family values, whether we say it or not, you're still modeling it, and kids are picking it up. It's not just what we say; it's what we do. So, whatever values they are, moral values, religious values, spiritual values, educational values, social values, all these things I believe were first modeled in the home. I tell parents all the time, the community does not build your family. Your family is building the community, because where do citizens come from? Citizens don't go to school. Don't come from school. Citizens don't come from business. Citizens don't come from work. They go to work. They go to school. Where they come from is from the home. And the question is, mom and dad, what kind of citizens do we send into the community every day? And I'm trying to help parents understand, yes, these are your children, but you are also raising citizens who become the next employer or employee. And what kind of student, employee, and person are you putting out in the neighborhood? So the values that we learn in the family are really important. As far as culture goes, whether it's over there in the eastern part of the world, western part of the world, I've found, and I've done this work internationally, the principles are the same. Uh, you know, Nobody's going to argue about being honest, having integrity, valuing and having respect for other people, having respect for authority, understanding how to get along in social circles, things like that. Those are principles that are universal, and that's what I'm trying to encourage parents to understand. And so, like you said, now I'll say one last thing. Sometimes as kids, we were raised in certain ways with traditions and values that might be outdated. And so maybe there's some things that were great and some things not so great. Like my dad saying, you just shut up, go to your room, do what I say, don't ask any questions, and whatever I say goes. That might be a value and a way of raising kids that we want to change ourselves. But there's other things I'm sure that you're talking about, Doctor, that were good things that we want to continue with our children.
Excellent.
Let's see, got no
Another,
left.
another just important things I just want to add because I visit a lot around the world from USA to Bangladesh, all of the countries. Uh, Three things I think we need to improve, even though in Bangladesh divorce rate increase. So it's actually create a negative impact in our future generations, especially when the divorce rate and all of the things increase. So the parents, they have to be more respectful in between their relationship. This is my observation. Second things, sports is playing a fantastic jobs to make this uh, like teamwork, relationship, friendly relationship, and everything. But because of this uh, social media, I know many people will not agree with me, and because of this social media, internet, and everything, when I go to my grassroots level communities, when I go to my cities, not only in California, even though in Dhaka, everywhere I find children and the young community, they are not involved with the sports. They only focus on this internet and everything. I think this is one of the things we are losing our intellectual ability. Maybe many people will not agree with me. And third things, even though in subcontinent, meditation is a very important factor for mental health. I go for meditation. My wife go for meditations. Meditations give me a lot of energies. I think in some point people has to, beside these science innovations and regular educations, the young communities and the peoples, they have to continue this kind of meditations and everything. I do not know what's your thoughts, but this is the way I think that we can build the next generation in an effective way. Both the Western and the southern south cultures together and make an effective leaders for global communities. I don't know what's your think.
I think meditation has become much more popular in the Western world than it used to be. I think people are understanding it more and more. Brain science, neuroscience, the things that neuroscientists are discovering today with through meditation and the physical body and the power of the brain to heal ourselves and things like that. I think those are things are becoming much more popular than they used to be. Before it was kind of maybe felt a little woo woo about it, new agey and weird a little bit, but nowadays the neuroscience that is going on today in this country, I think, is pretty powerful. So yeah, I think it's a good practice for sure.
So
Richard.
one problem that uh, everything but social media offers, like family time, meals together, is they're boring. Look at what people are seeing when they watch the show right now. Six heads talking at once often. People have are used to getting flooded with information all the time, and that's why holding a phone is so attractive to adults and kids because you can get everything you want all the time. So how do you fight it? How do you incorporate it? You know, those families that we see in restaurants where the adults and the kids, everybody is looking at their own screen. I don't know that you can just tell people no. So how do you incorporate, our addiction to everything all the time with family life?
Mark, I know, Mark, I know you want to get your other guests in here, but I'll quickly answer that question, and then I'll, throw it to you so you can get your other guests in here. But Rick, it's the same thing. It's a matter of discipline, and what we encourage parents to do is, can there be a day, 2, 3 days a week where you sit down with your family and say, hey, no TV, no radio, no noise, no music, no phones, no texting, nothing, just face to face conversation. Let's not let Facebook take away our FaceTime with each other. Let's play a board game one night a week, have dinner together. In other words, it has to be planned and monitored by parents. But what I'm trying to do is wake parents up and for them to realize, if you don't plan these things, if you're not aware of what's happening, then you're just going to keep going on the way you are. And next thing you know, your kid's in a gang, your kid's being seduced by some social media influencer. They're joining a negative lifestyle because of TikTok, because they want to be socially popular. So to answer your question, it just comes down to parents having the discipline and awareness and the presence to be present with their kids, eye to eye contact. And sometimes parents just need to be coached. So, Mark, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, no problem. Did you have another question, Rick, that you wanted to ask
Well,
really
just
quickly?
that I don't know how you get parents to be to show their kids that they're honest brokers of information about the world. A few days ago, a 20-year-old kid in Idaho lay in wait and ambushed firefighters. He started a fire, then he shot the firefighters when they showed up to fight the fire. And then there have been pictures. There's one picture of the parents, each wearing a MAGA hat, is standing in front of the White House, like kind of jeering at the White House. And you know, in that family, there was a bunch of like funky attitudes and information flying around. And how do parents like keep their equilibrium and make sure that they themselves are not instilling craziness in their kids?
Well, that's a huge question. We're trying to work with as many as we can. I mean, we can't control people. All we can do is make suggestions of what is healthy and what is moral. What my moral values may not be theirs. So that's a tough one. I know about that story you're talking about. That's the world we live in. And again, we're just trying to encourage mom and dad. You're the role model. You're the authority figure. What you're doing at home is making an impact on your kids, and trying to just coach parents to be the best they can be for their children. But we can't control everybody, and the ideologies and things like that. That's
my kid is my parent with regard to some social media. My wife and my kid came together and said, "You cannot post on Instagram because we know what you're like, and you will embarrass the family." And they weren't wrong. And often the kids know more about, not being an a-hole in social media than the parents might.
That's true.
Yeah, that's real true. The kids sometimes are wiser and everything like that. Get ready to get into some of the other world issues and all along those lines, including the build and everything. Richard, before you leave, definitely if you can tell folks how they can reach you and the title of your 2 books. And the other question I was going to ask you just really quickly before we get into some of these world issues and everything, in addition to how folks can reach you, is what advice would you give to folks that are not just doing blended families, but also starting new families? Because I do know that happens. I was actually just talking to one of my aunts yesterday, and she was telling me that one of my cousins has got grown kids and is now getting remarried because he was married to a Native American out of, and he's Native descent or claimed Native descent as well. But he was married. They were married up in Canada, and now he's marrying somebody in North Dakota, and they are expecting. So they're expecting a new baby. So they're expecting a new child after the other children were grown and gone. And we do know that happens in some families where you have this kind of like second reiteration of the family life and everything, because the first family is grown and gone, and now you've got toddlers. So it's almost like you've got the 20-year-old kid and then the infant. So what advice do you give to people in those situations?
Well, parenting is a lifelong journey of personal growth. And what I found is so often is parents just stop growing. I call it flatlining. And I often say to them, mom and dad, listen, growing old is not hard. It's automatic. Just look at me. I didn't always have gray hair and a gray beard, and I had lots of more hair. But without trying, I grew old. But growing up is not automatic. Growing up takes effort, and I don't have time to get into all of what that is, but that's what I teach in Parents on a Mission. When parents will say, okay, Richard, you convinced me, I need to grow up. I need to grow in my maturity. How do I do that? That's what my book, Parents on a Mission, How to Win the Competition for the Heart, Mind, and Loyalty of Your Children. That's what the book's about. It's helping parents understand you have a responsibility. You have children. You're raising citizens. And your personal growth and maturity level, transparency, vulnerability, integrity, all of those things are vital in order for us to have a healthy and safe community. We cannot depend on government, social entities, or education or religion to give us safe communities. If those things were the answers, we would have had them a long time ago. The truth is, it's about parents at home, mom and dad, and that's why I call it Parents on a Mission. The second book, The Art of Step Parenting, How to Blend Families Without Tearing Them Apart. And people can find me and more information at Richard R. Ramos. Don't forget my middle initial, richardrramos.com. I also have a podcast, The Parent Whisperer podcast.com. They can go there and just listen at their own leisure. My books are on Amazon or my website, richardraramos.com, or the podcast, the Parent Whisperer podcast.com.
What I think you're saying is that parents, step parents, the adults in families need to put in some work to make sure that they are competent leaders. So I grew up in the 70s, and my parents, step parents, there were so many divorces. I have like 4 siblings. Nobody has the same 2 parents. There was a lot of cluelessness and immaturity in my parents' generation. And I'd say now that people learn, parenting wasn't even a word yet until the 80s. So I think people realize you need to do work in parenting, in a relationship. And I'd also say that there are more resources out there for parents than there used to be. My wife and I are lucky enough we've got good insurance that's paid for decades of couples counseling. But if you can't afford it, it turns out now there is AI couples counseling that doesn't cost anything. You can sit down and work through things with a third party, even though the third party isn't a real person.
Yeah. Well, Mark, listen, I really appreciate you having me on. I'm going to sign off now, but thank you so much for having me, and the rest of you for giving me an opportunity to share my views.
Appreciate you and
Thank
everything
you.
like that. So appreciate that thoughts. We still got a few more minutes to go, and I know one of the things that we were talking about in general was and came up yesterday, was the Big Beautiful Bill. Apparently, the Big Beautiful Bill has passed the Senate, and it's now going to the House, and it looks like it's going to pass totally and everything like that. So what is our take on that? Because even with what Richard was talking about, a lot of that kind of programming will be cut, because it looks like Medicaid will be threatened, or is it Medicaid? I always get those confused, Medicaid and Medicare, but there'll definitely be some cuts in the social programs and everything along those lines. So what is our thoughts around the notion of this bill and what's going on with the bill?
So right now, I think there's a vote going on where it's not clear. Wait, no, it's not clear whether this vote will make it through the House. And that vote's happening right now. And there's a lot of resistance because the people in the House feel like the changes made by the Senate made the bill crappier. And that's both among the extreme right. They're not getting what they want. And then, of course, the left isn't getting anything that they want. So I don't know what the chances of it making it through. Trump has imposed a deadline of July 4th, which means you got to get it done by tomorrow.
It'll pass. It'll pass.
Okay.
Sadly, because every Republican will bend their knee. There may be one holdout, just like last time, but no, it'll pass.
I know that Trump has been bringing Republicans who are reluctant into the White House so he can persuade them face to face.
Persuade is, let's use the actual term. He's bullying them into doing. This is an authoritarian regime, administration. And so he's using the power or the pull and power of the White House to pull, and get people to do exactly what he wants. Hence the reason why, Lisa Murkowski even said that she was afraid of voting against Trump. So we knew she was going to vote for it in the Senate. So again, they'll vote for it. They don't care. Trump doesn't care. So all the bad stuff that's in that bill, extremely bad stuff that's in that bill, it's going to pass.
Sasha, you had something you were going to add?
I want to mention something that Elon Musk promised to punish every Republican who is voting for the bill in the upcoming elections. He will heavily invest against all candidates who will run against Republicans who voted for the bill. So when you are saying that everybody in the House will vote for the bill, all Republicans, I doubt about all Republicans. Most Republicans, I would agree, but not all Republicans, because there could be repercussions, and these people they are political animals, that they will do anything to save their place in the House. So they will wait very carefully advantages to vote for the bill and vote against the bill and get into Musk's graces. And here is something very important to understand, that Trump is there for another, say, 3.5 years, of which year and a half left before midterm elections. And if Republicans will lose that, then he will be impotent for the last 2 years of his presidency. So Musk is there for a much longer time, unless Trump will figure out how to make a deportation of him to South Africa. Whether he can do it or not, it's a big question. I think that with Supreme Court on his side and finding his unscrupulous lawyers, I think he will find a reason or two to make deportation possible. So in this case, it will be a new ball game.
So, Sasha and Jacoby, who do you think is going to get deported first if he has his way? Is it going to be the candidate from New York, or is it going to be Musk, because he's threatened both of those individuals? So, which one do you think that he will be able to deport first? Because he's threatened both of them with deportation. Because I think he threatened Zumali with deportation back to Uganda.
He's not going to deport either one. Mamdani, he's not going to be able to get to because of the actual the polling around it. He won't be able to really attack Mamdani the way that will happen. He's not going to go after Musk. Musk has too much power. As much as Musk has Starlink. The U.S. military right now is tied to Starlink. So he's not going to be able to pull that, and Musk can pull his card there. So then you have a battle. And then same thing with SpaceX. The U.S. has so much invested into SpaceX. Trump isn't going to be able to deport or attack Musk in that way. So it's going to be a verbal jab back and forth between Musk and Trump. Yes, Musk will end up attacking primarying some of the GOP individual or the GOP who actually vote for it. But what will end up happening is nothing's really going to come of the Musk and Trump split. It may, if Musk reveals something big, that would hurt Trump. But right now, it's just going to be verbal jabbing back and forth. But he's not going to go out. He's not going to legitimately deport either one. He's going to attack both verbally, but he's not going to deport either one.
So the midterms are 17 months from now. Musk is famously both of them, Trump and Musk, their thoughts can turn on a dime. So to expect Musk to come in and really help primary everybody who voted for this bill a year and a half from now is, who knows what he'll think then. We don't. I mean, it would be nice to think that his threats might lose the Republicans a couple votes, but
speaking of those threats and everything,
but one more thing. So the bill, as Jacoby says, the bill is likely to eventually pass in some form, and people are going to lose. Tens of millions of people are going to, more than that, 50 million people will lose some level of government services. And when that happens, people have to figure out how to get those services without the help of the government. And that's our bad luck, to live under Trump. Our good luck is that we live in a tech environment where we can find certain help outside of the government.
That's true.
Well, just to push back on that, because the reality is a lot of those people that are going to be harmed and taken off from his closures of Job Corps, those people aren't going to be able to find jobs and the help that they need.
No.
Because they're already in poverty in the first place, and Job Corps was the one that was giving him a job to actually get out of poverty. So those people are going to be lost to the wind. The people who are in poverty that are relying heavily on Medicare and Medicaid, a lot of those people are going to be lost to the wind because, again, they don't have the resources that that to be able to find that extra help. There are going to be entities that are going to try and help. For example, food banks right now are stretched thin, extremely thin. And with the closure of SNAP programs, the closure of, again, Job Corps, the closure of these rural hospitals that are going to hit, food banks are going to close because they won't have enough food because they're struggling as is from the recovery from COVID. So now you're going to have problems there. You're going to have people there's going to be a run on crime because when poverty increases, crime increases.
Right.
And it's a direct correlation. So we're going to have a lot of problems that are going to come from this bill. But what they're going to do politically is blame Biden. They're going to blame the other talking points of, oh, it's just waste, fraud, and abuse. Think about this. You're now having no tax on tips. Who the F cares?
That only lasts for 3 years. That no tax on tip expires. The tax cuts for rich people, those are permanent.
Yep.
So, it's a shell game. And the people who will die, an estimated 51,000 Americans will die from losing their health coverage. That's 140 Americans a day. But we won't hear much about them. They're invisible Americans because they're poor. They don't take up a lot of space in people's awareness. COVID killed 1.4 million Americans. It doesn't feel like that because we were distracted by other bullshit. But one thing people can do, you may lose access to medical professionals, but one thing people can do, or if they have the mental wherewithal, is to take a look at medical information online and try to figure out what's going on with them. And you'll get a lot of bad information, but you can also learn some stuff about your various conditions. And
the only thing with that again, Rick, why do we have so many anti-vaxxers? Because they did that.
Because they're idiots who ate up bad information. Yeah.
And so that happened. But then the mental wherewithal is the key thing, because the invisible individuals that are out there, we always forget about those with special needs. They're going to be dropped from a lot of programs. Their parents won't be able to pay for these programs or even get the services that they need to access because of what's going on. So this is going to do more damage to the U.S. And honestly, it's going to be similar to what the U.S. did with the USAID. USAID helped so many across the globe. And so those individuals that are now passing away and dying are, again, invisible individuals. As Nick pointed out yesterday, they're not American, so I don't care. So now it's going to be the same thing here. I don't have a child with special needs, so I don't care. I don't know anybody who can't access the internet, so I don't care. And that's the way it continues to build. And that's the problem with this bill is I think you hit on the key point. The invisible, and I would take away the term Americans, and I would just point out, because of USAID, what they did with that, what they're doing with demonizing undocumented migrants. It's invisible people, because if you don't see them and it's not part of your family, these individuals don't care, and that's how they're going to manipulate and continue to push this bill and try and convince it's a good thing when really it's harming so many people.
Yeah, well, 2 quick questions, and we only got a few more minutes to go and everything like that, but we can go a little bit over and everything. But I did see that Musk is talking about a new political party, so maybe he's going to team up with our good friend and co-host here on the network, David Walker, and see about joining the forces and everything like that. I don't know if they're having conversation or not, but he did roll out this notion of a new political party. So we'll see if that's a serious thing.
That would be that's any form of that would be a win for America, because the Republicans as a political party are now completely nuts and irresponsible. And any new party would take more away from the Republicans than it would from the Dems. Now, the Dems haven't been great. The Dems, in terms of messaging, they're shitty. And they're chaotic, and the Dems need a boost.
And I think yes, we need a third party. Completely agree with that. I think we also, as a society, need to stop this whole idea of, and this is, I've been thinking about this for a while. And this is why I have this issue with always coming down. Well, the Dems are so chaotic and blah, blah, blah. They don't have a message. Well, Trump, for example, what they're having to deal with Trump has flooded the zone. So how can you respond to everything that he's flooded the zone with? And when you're trying to respond, you sound chaotic because you've got to push back on the bigotry. You've got to push back on the taking money from these places, the harming people in USAID, all this stuff that's being done. If we focus only on, hey, look, we've got to protect this. We've got three things that we should focus on, just like the Republican Party: immigration, finances, and whatever. That's not actually what the Republican Party focused on. The Republican Party did the Southern strategy. The Republican Party did cultural issues and all this other stuff. They were just as chaotic. But again, we begin to fall into the same messaging that, the Democrat Party is shooting all this stuff into the wind. Well, the Republican Party is doing the same. They're just doing it based on fear. They're making you think that somebody's coming to steal your job while they're talking about cultural issues and all this other stuff and DEI and everything. They're shooting the same stuff in the wind that the Democrat Party is doing. I think what we have to do as a society is learn a different way of understanding our politics. And instead of, there was a study. And I just saw this. Rick, you would like this. There was a study that I just heard about, which I've got to read more into, where they asked basically a group of individuals, hey, do you prefer the stricter policies on these programs, or do you prefer the more looser policies on these programs? Well, when they did that, more conservatives chose, more people who identified as conservatives ended up choosing the stricter policies, and more who consider themselves more liberal chose the ones with looser policies. However, when they flipped it in that same group and said, hey, look, this is what that conservative party is advocating for. There's more looser parties. The Republican Party is choosing these looser parties, or the Democrats were choosing these stricter parties. The groups flipped. So then those individuals decided to choose the ones who were conservative, decided to choose.
The Republicans represent policies that most Americans don't like.
No. What I'm saying is those who chose first these stricter policies, when they heard that the Republicans chose looser policies, they flipped.
The Republicans go along. But here's one thing. Here's a separate thing. Here's a separate. Hold on. Wait. One thing. Diddy. Wait. Let's do Diddy before we sign off.
Oh, but we're gonna get Diddy. I just wanted to point out
serious
that
charges.
both parties flipped.
What, okay, but Diddy, up to 5 charges, acquitted of the 2 most serious, convicted of 2 lesser charges, deadlocked on the 5th charge. So he gets off on the.
But I mean, the Diddy thing's one thing. The Diddy thing, the dude beat a woman in a hallway, and I can't deal with Diddy. That ain't even important. But what I'm saying is, what my point was it was interesting to see. And the scary thing is that people are following more party lines, rather than, and that goes for both. People are following more party lines.
We know that. We know the Republicans will lay down for whatever Trump lays down.
But it was the Democrats as well.
But both parties.
Both parties do it.
Complicated. People are distracted. They want to know what to do. So they'll line up along party lines without too much consideration.
And that's why I guess, again, thinking about it, when we keep talking about how the Democrats are also scattershot and all this other craziness, we have to start to realize that how easily we're being manipulated in the situation to create these talking points and push the same ideas down. When, if you look logically, the Republican Party is really just as scattershot in their approach.
All right, so,
it's just those fearful things.
No, just really quick.
Hold on. When you respond to Republican bullshit, to specific Republican talking points, you've already lost. There needs to be a general democratic talking point, which is when Republicans talk trans, when they talk, gay books in libraries, they're just picking your pocket. This is all to distract you so they can take money out of your pocket with taking away services. Any of that, like Riley Gaines, I lost a swimming race to a guy, that's all bullshit. Maybe she did well, and she didn't even. She came in 5th place. But when you just say, look, when they say trans, you should look at your pockets.
Yeah, that's definitely. Hey, Sasha, just really quickly before we get out of here and everything, I know we got the investment show at 1:00, but the one thing that I was going to get to you and ask you really quickly, if you can answer quickly and everything along those lines, is one of the things that Trump is bragging about is this agreement. He says he's got Israel to back it. He wants Hamas to back it and everything. So are we actually going to have a Trump-inspired ceasefire, or is this just wishful thinking on Trump's part and everything? So is this ceasefire actually going to hold? Because he says he's got Netanyahu's backing, and I think Netanyahu is in D.C., and he's telling Hamas to lay down its arms as well.
Well, he's already tried to end the Ukrainian-Russia war in 1 day or 21 days or 101 days or whatever it might be. I really don't see why do you think that he will be more successful in Israeli-Hamas ceasefire. I really see, as long as Hamas holds even one alive hostage, there will be no peace. It's only when all of them will die or Hamas will kill them one way or another, then there is a potential of peace. And the peace will be one-sided peace. There will be Israel and there will be no Hamas. There will be no alive Hamas person. So naturally, when people are dead, there is no peace. There is no war. There is nothing, because there is only one side. And remember, to finish the war, Israel must occupy Gaza. There will be no third-party government. There will be no Qatar, no United States.
You've got to stop calling for genocide and ethnic cleansing.
I heard you. You will have your turn, Okay, actually, I finished. Go ahead.
Stop calling for genocide.
So whatever you call it, genocide, not genocide, is wiping out Hamas even close? The war's been going on for 19 months, and it still seems like there are thousands and thousands of Hamas in Gaza. Are Israel getting closer to achieving its gains, or for every Hamas they kill, do they get another Hamas? Somebody turns into Hamas.
Until
is Israel closer to its objectives than it was 6 months ago?
Absolutely. He's almost destroyed Hamas. There are few fighters there, and they are inspired by the fact that they are holding hostages. If there wouldn't be for hostages, if one miraculous way they will disappear, then the war will be over in an hour and a half. I mean, Israel, if they could hit Iran so hard, 2,000 kilometers away. So what do you think they can do with Hamas if there will be purely military action? It will be over in an hour and a half, probably faster.
So what's happening? There are 20 hostages left alive. There are maybe another 24 bodies or 36 bodies. And I assume that Hamas has this network of tunnels and they're just playing a shell game, that they're just moving these 20 alive, 30 dead people around Gaza, and Israel's chasing him. Is that the deal?
Well, Israel offering So they will deliver at least half of the alive hostages. And so Trump offers a ceasefire for 60 days. I don't think that Hamas will agree to that. They will not agree to anything. They have their prey. They have 20 alive hostages. And they want to extract as highest price as possible. But even what kind of price they want to get? What they want Israel to cease to exist? They want Israel to disappear? What exactly do they want? They can't even formulate what they want. They want us to be there and fight Israel.
So what you're saying is that the current conditions will continue for months ahead, but Israel continue to blow up Gaza, and Hamas will continue to hold out and to hide the hostages.
Yeah, something like this. Something like this, until there will be evidence that all hostages are dead. Once that will happen, the war will be over very quickly, in 1 day or less.
All right, I'll see you guys.
So you had something to add really quickly?
I was going to say really quickly, you have to stop advocating for genocide, and you've got to figure out a way, instead of going for that whole let's kill everybody route, come up with some type of negotiation plan to create a two-state solution, allow the people of Palestine to have their lives, allow the people of Israel to have their lives. Everybody, we have to stop thinking killing is the best idea, and that is what you're advocating for, Sasha. I hate to say it.
No, as a two-state solution. Two-state solution was a viable option available in 1948 and several times after that. The Palestinians blew it away. There is no longer.
Since you interrupted me real quick, let me point out a two-state solution still is a viable option. It is always a viable option if you make it a viable option. If you decide, as you have, that the only way to live is to kill everybody on the other side, that's not making it a viable option. So to make it a viable option is what we have to do, to actually figure a way to make it work by utilizing those other partners within that region is what we have to do. Because if you want peace, because the war that is just within this October 7th that we want to talk about, the war has actually been going on longer than that, because why are the people in Gaza and the West Bank fighting? They're upset because of occupation. That is their that is one of their biggest reasons. There's a long history,
and they all have to get away from Israel.
The whole
Gazans may stay on the recognized right of situation is they will stop anti-Israeli propaganda.
If we're not going to deal
they want to continue from the river to the sea and all that garbage out. Nobody's going to hear to you. There will be no state solution. There will
Israeli
be
people need to live in peace.
Israel from the river to the sea.
Sasha,
no
do you
one
agree?
else.
Sasha,
there
I'll
will
ask
be
you
nobody else but Israel from
Sasha.
the river to the sea.
Do you believe the Israeli people should live in peace?
Done. Israel show that it's only real power in the region of the world. Nobody can touch Israel. Whoever will touch Israel will be dead. So remember, get on your knees and say, Israel, we want to be with you. Not dead, out, and dead.
Can you say that you want peace?
Thanks a lot. Have to leave.
Cool. Okay. If you're going to just run away from the conversation, run away. Thank you. So the point being, what he is advocating for is a genocide of the Palestinian people, because he is never delineating between Hamas and the people of Palestine. They are separate individuals. The people of Palestine deserve peace just as the people of Israel deserve peace. We got to stop looking at, hey, what's the best way to kill the next person or to dominate the next people? That doesn't help. That doesn't create a solution. And that doesn't move that area or even this country forward. As you can see globally, people are still upset about what's going on. So we got to stop talking about genocide. Got to stop talking about ethnic cleansing. That is not a solution. That is a problem. we can work together and figure out a solution. So, I mean,
we should be able to. I agree, and we should be able to work that out. And unfortunately, it's not just Israel and Palestine, but you know, and I know there's a lot of attempts at ethnic cleansing in various parts of the world and everything, and that is one of the things that is very frustrating, including with some of our African nations and some of our Asian nations and everything else. So I do agree that whether it's Pakistan and India or Israel and Palestine or even Eritrea and Ethiopia, that there's got to be ways to find effective solutions that are fair to all people and doesn't include a lot of this death and destruction and this notion that you have to totally eradicate your enemy and everything like that. Horrible attitude.
Exactly. I mean, they're like that individual that, you know, could be my neighbor. Oh, I hate my neighbor, hate my neighbor. That neighbor could turn out to be the best thing to happen in my life. So we've got to figure out a way to move forward. Got to figure out a way to stop killing people. It's just not working.
Yeah, it's not working at all. And on that note, we're going to get out of here. I got some other shows, including Sasha's Modern Investment later on, but we'll get out of here. We'll have another World Edition on the 3rd. And definitely I thought Richie was a good guest talking about parenting, but I didn't know we'd get to some world issues as well. So we'll get back and we'll have no guests tomorrow, but we'll have some more discussions about world issues on tomorrow's edition of World Edition.